Namaskar and welcome to NFL Masala. I'm your co-host Anant.
And I'm your other co-host, Rakshak. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 6 of NFL Masala, where we talk about all the latest happenings in the NFL with a little bit of spice.
So today we are going to be breaking down the NFC South Division after some dhamakedar news. And so let's get started with our dhamakedar news. So first bit of news, surprise, actually not surprised, Jordan Love has been extended as the Packers quarterback for the foreseeable future. It's a 4-year, $220 million contract extension, which also has a $75 million signing bonus and $155 million of total guaranteed money. Now, the key thing is they've structured it so well that the cap hits are not going to hit egregious amounts until year 3 of that contract extension, where it's supposed to hit about $60 million in dead cap and then $94 million in the dead cap for the following year, which they could probably extend it, massage it, do whatever. But for the first 2 to 3 years, the cap hits are actually very manageable. So this seems like a pretty win-win deal, but it also seems like they had to give this amount of money because Jordan Love was not going to accept anything less. And it's only a 4-year extension, so he's still, the Packers quarterback until he's 25. Until he's 30 years old, and we've got him for the next 5 years. So yeah. It's a decent deal, I will say, but it is definitely a lot of money. It is a lot of money that has been gone to Jordan Love. Now, obviously, all the Bears fans and all the NFL fans who hate Jordan Love and who have hated the Packers are saying, oh my God, massive overpay. Well, you know what? Shut up. At least we have a franchise quarterback that we know is going to succeed because he nearly took down the eventual Super Bowl losers in the San Francisco 49ers in the divisional round in San Francisco with the youngest NFL team since 1970 to make the playoffs. So suck on that.
You heard the man. I can't say anything about it. Anywho, moving on to another daily dose of contract extensions. Before the Jordan Love signing, we had the Tua extension. So, and by the way, folks that are listening to this for the first time, I'm not talking about the Hawk Tua girl. It's Tua Tagovailoa. Just FYI.
All right.
And
let's keep it PG.
Yes. And the thing is, for just a second, this was on July 26th, on Friday, according to Marcel Louis-Jacques of ESPN. For the second time since Dan Marino retired, the Dolphins have signed a quarterback to a multi-year extension, and they've signed the 2020 from the 2020 class, 5th overall, Mr. Tua Tagovailoa agreed to a 4-year, $212.4 million deal. Includes $167 million guaranteed, according to Adam Schefter. It was, remember the words. It was meaning past, because right now we got the now with Jordan Love. It was the richest contract in franchise history. Yeah, it is
in Dolphins history.
In Dolphins history, it is
still would have been $53 million per year.
Yeah,
which is not it's $2 million per year less than Burrow, Lawrence, and now Jordan Love.
Right. But now that you think about it, he's now with Jordan Love being the number 5th. Tua was the 4th quarterback from the 2020 class to sign an extension with the team that drafted him. And he joins the ranks of Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, now Jordan Love, and Mr. Jalen Hurts. You know what all 3 have in common? They went to the playoffs.
And they were amongst the 2020 year of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
2020 draft. Yeah.
And But what this also means, this shows that the Dolphins are willing to commit to Tua. They're not going to risk getting another quarterback with this. And I mean, of course, first 2 seasons with the Dolphins when he was healthy, 66% of his passes were complete, 4,467 yards, 22 touchdowns against 15 interceptions in 2020 and 2021. He did blossom under McDaniel while completing 67.4% of his passes. He did lead the NFL in 2023, career high 4,624, playing a full season. That's what I'm really happy to hear about. But then again, the one thing, but unfortunately, his career has been a bit of a seesaw because not only that, the Dolphins had to cycle through 3 offensive coordinators and 2 quarterback coaches before bringing Mike McDaniel in February 2022. Since McDaniel's arrival, he's thrown the 4th most passing yards, 8,172, 5th most touchdowns in 54 in the NFL. And guess what? His 102.9% passer rating and 67.4% completion also ranks 2nd and 5th in the league, respectively. And by the way, interesting fact, since Dan Marino retired at the turn of the century, the Dolphins had 25 different quarterbacks. And of course, there's going to be some risk with the long term because Tua's health. And of course, and then again, you also have to look at how long is this weapon's going to last. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and much more. You can't be just depending on 2 guys and how is it. And also, you have to take a look at what the Mike McDaniel offense really is and how teams are going to effectively read through this and know how to counter it. Because the league is always improving. There's no such thing as, things can get stale immediately, just like that. If you want case in point, unfortunately, you got to look at Frank Reich. Yeah, of course, the Colts hired him after the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017. But since then, where the hell has he been?
Yep. Alrighty, so let's move on to the next one. The next bit of news is unfortunate, very unfortunate. Christian Barmore is unfortunately out indefinitely due to having blood clots and being diagnosed with that. He was treated at Mass General Brigham near Foxborough, Massachusetts. And the unfortunate part is he is out indefinitely. We don't know when he's going to be healed with this issue. And it's a pretty serious issue, you know. Having blood clots, not exactly helpful while playing a vicious sport like football. So yeah, it's very unfortunate. He was a massive star. He had just gotten a contract extension in April, 4-year extension with maximum of $92 million and $41.8 million in guaranteed money. He was going to be their star interior defensive presence, both in the run game and in the pass game. But it's unfortunate that he has had this issue, and the Patriots are significantly going to miss his services in the upcoming season. So prayers up for Christian Barmore to heal and come back to the NFL playing at his highest level as soon as he possibly can.
Yeah. Just watch out for your health and speedy recovery, Christian Barmore. We'd love to see you on the field, but take care of your health. I like that you're doing that. And moving on, last but not least, we have a bit of injury news again. This really, it just sucks, but we have to report it. And this is according to Todd Archer, ESPN staff writer, on July 28th, this Sunday. And we also want to give a special shout out to Abhishek for breaking the news early with an Ari Meirov tweet. He said that before the Cowboys even held their first padded practice of training camp in Oxford, California, Sam Williams has suffered a torn ACL on his left knee. He's also suffered a partial MCL tear, and the injuries have ended his season before it began. This was during a special teams portion and a blocking drill, and unfortunately did not look good. The Cowboys were expected to they were banking on Williams to be part of that pass rush along with Dorrance Arms, with Demarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, and especially with Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler both leaving to join Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders. And Sean Williams, he had like 8.5 sacks last season in his first 2 seasons. Third on the team in sacks with 4.5 in 2023, but he only played like 28.3% of snaps. And I mean, it's really unfortunate, but they also select, but I think like they have Villami Fehoko Jr., Tyrus Sweet, and Darrell Johnson as full-time defensive ends, but they did not record a sack last year. So Chauncey Golston can play end, and he also has that 1.5 sack last season. But then again, it's a big pressure, man. It is not looking good, because now you're going to be depending a lot more on Tank Lawrence and Micah Parsons on both edges.
Right. Plus, you have a new defensive coordinator, so we don't know how that's going to go. And, you know, the problem with all of this is they don't have depth. Like, the depth that they do have is not consistent in terms of the pass rush.
It's not very convincing.
Exactly.
It's not convincing depth.
In a conference where you have really, really good offenses and really good quarterbacks that need to be pressured for, not just Jalen Hurts. I'm talking about like Jordan Love, Brock Purdy,
but
Jared Goff to an extent, right? The Lions to an extent, Matthew Stafford of the Rams. So, and now Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. It's very problematic for you to have a lack of a pass rush. That's going to also negatively affect your pass defense as well, your secondary in the backfield, secondary, and that's going to be significantly detrimental to your chances of succeeding as a team, as a defense, specifically if your pass defense sucks. If your rush defense sucks, yes, that is problematic, but in today's NFL, pass defense succeeding is way more important than your rush defense succeeding.
Right.
So, yeah, this is very problematic for the Cowboys. And as per usual, Jerry Jones does not do what he says he will do.
What did he say this time? What did Jerry Jones say or do this time?
I'm sure he was the one who said, we're going all in. Did they go all in on the defense? Nope. Did they go all in on the offense? Nope.
Except Eric Kendricks.
Oh my God. You got a 31-year-old linebacker from Minnesota. Whoa. Great job, guys. Great job, Jerry Jones. You saved the defense. You saved Cowboy Nation. You gave hope. Eric Kendricks is the spark that's going to light the Cowboys defense on fire now.
The funniest thing right now, folks, is usually I'll be the one saying this, yet I'm holding back as another saying.
I hate them as much as you do.
Oh no, I consider Dallas Cowboys to be a special part of hell, along with Chelsea FC and the Australian cricket team, because the Australian cricket team is too damn good.
Yep, and the 49ers, don't forget them.
Oh, I know. The 49ers are still under the curse. They ain't escaping from me soon.
Alrighty. Yeah, so that's it for the market there news. Obviously not as much as our previous episode because we had gone for about 2 months. So now we are recording this, I think, about a week after we published our previous episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not that much news. Now moving on to the NFC South preview. Alrighty, starting with the Saints. I have 2 words for them, Dakshak.
What?
And that is that they are permanently enigmatic.
Permanently enigmatic. How?
Here's why. They have a decent team. On paper, they have a decent team, but they finished 9-8. They did not win the division.
Mm-hmm.
They did not make the playoffs. They were 17th in total offensive DVOA and 15th in defensive DVOA. Literally mid. The definition of the mid.
Repeat that M word again.
Mid.
Wait.
They
I want to hear
are
it one more
mid.
time. Mid. What is those? And they say like, oh, New Orleans is a freaky place. Guess what? It is a mid team.
Yep. And they are so enigmatic because they have some good pieces. You look at the O-line, that is surprisingly not the problem. 7th in adjusted line yards, which means that O-line was moving. They were moving opposing D-lines.
Yeah.
6th in sack percentage, which means they did not allow a lot of pressure. 5th lowest time to throw. 5th most time to throw. So they they really didn't they were able to give Derek Carr some time in the pocket. However, the components that were mid for this team is basically everything else. Wide receivers and running backs. Wide receivers were 19th in yards of separation, average yards of separation, 19th in the NFL. And the running backs, dude, Alvin Kamara and that entire running back committee sucked last year. Behind that offensive line, they could only generate the 28th most running back yards per attempt. According to DVOA statistics, they were only able to generate 3.54 yards by themselves. And the offensive line was able to generate roughly a yard more per attempt. That's ridiculous in terms of running back performance. Now, that probably also indicates that the scheme was not helpful. I believe Pete Carmichael was the offensive coordinator there, and he has not helped at all. You look at Derek Carr, mid, 18th in EPA per drop back, 16th in QBR, 18th in success rate. What are you supposed to do there? His performances were mid. His scheme was mid. His offensive weapons were mid, but his O-line was really good. D-line against the run, 19th in adjusted line yards, 16th in stuffing percentage, mid. But pass rush, dude, 4th lowest in sack percentage, which means they could not get pressure on the opposing QBs, which is why they ended up with games. And this is why I'm saying that they're very much enigmatic, because they ended up with games like, hold on, let me show you guys here. They ended up with games where they're blowing out opposing teams. 28-6 versus Carolina. Yeah, that's not that big. But 48-17 against Atlanta. 34-0 against New England. But then they lose. They lose to teams like Minnesota, 27-19. They lose again to Atlanta, 24-15. They lost to Green Bay early on, 18-17. And they lost to Tampa Bay, 26-9. Like, this just reeks of mid, because they don't have an identity. They don't have consistency. And that's the problem with the Saints. They don't have consistency on either the offense or the defense. Either they win versus Tennessee 16-15. Oh, okay. Look at this. 2 games against Carolina. The first game that they played, they won 20-17.
Okay.
The second game they played, they won 28-6. Against the same opponent.
I don't get it.
Now, yes,
I just don't get this.
This was spread across the entire season. So they played Carolina first in week 2, where they won 20-17, and then they played them again in week 14, 28-6. So you could say that they had a lot of improvement, but if we really did see that improvement, then we should have seen that against other teams as well. But you just don't see that. Like one day they beat Indianapolis 38-27, and then they beat an inferior team in Chicago 24-17, and then they lose to Minnesota 27-9. So, in this scenario, like this team again is the definition of mediocrity and enigma. Like they don't have consistency, and they were not able to have a consistent team, a consistent performance on either offense or defense. And that's pretty depressing to hear as a Saints fan, because if you're a fan of a football team, either you want them to be really, really good and make the playoffs, be competitive, or for them to suck so that they have a chance to improve in the offseason and in the
Roll
draft.
up the tank engines, ladies and gentlemen. That's
Yeah, but this is the anti-tank engine. This is like
the mid tank.
no, this is like falling into quicksand. Actually, no, that's not the right analogy.
Not
the right analogy. I'm trying to think here. This is like I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, it's not good. It's not fun.
It feels like a draw.
Yeah. Yes.
And you know what the sports equivalent of a draw is? But people may have heard the term, you know what a draw signifies? It means that you're okay with kissing your own sister. It's an actual term. A draw is as equal as kissing one's own sister.
Oh my. I have never heard of this one. That's yikes. That is not fun. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what that means, but okay. You do you.
It's a term I've heard someone say, especially in a podcast live. I remember when I remember it was like a long time back. I was listening to Bleeding Green Nation. When SB Nation had their episodes, there was a Kiss and Solak show, in which the Eagles tied the Bengals ever. I'm like, how did that happen? It was during the 2020 COVID season, which was so weird. And then Michael Kiss opens up with, after like Ben Solak is like, how are we going to do this? Michael Kiss goes up and says, you are now kissing your sister live on a podcast. I'm like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. Going back to the Saints. All right. Going back to the Saints. What was important is, did they actually improve during the offseason? Okay. Let's check what they did in free agency. First of all, to try and improve their pass rush, they brought in Chase Young from the San Francisco 49ers on a 1-year, $13 million deal.
Who didn't win? I'm sorry, I had to clear my throat. Oh, God, I'm having allergies today, man. Of all days. What's going on?
Today of all days.
Mondays.
Yeah, I mean, you are allergic to one thing, I will say. 49ers. Yep. That red and yellow logo.
That red and gold logo.
Nah, they're yellow. They don't deserve gold. Gold is a precious color. Yellow is the color of piss. We deserve gold.
Moving on.
All right. Cedric Wilson from the Dolphins, 2-year, $5.75 million deal. Willie Gay from the Chiefs on a 1-year deal. A tackle from Minnesota. Lucas Patrick, a guard from Chicago, and a bunch of other depth. And they're looking at a quarterback switch, dude. Did you know who they just got?
Who they got?
Replaced Derek Carr.
Who?
The legend himself, Nathan Peterman.
Oh my God, Peter Meme is back.
Nathan Peterman back on a 1-year, $1.2 million
Oh
deal.
man.
Cheapest starting quarterback on this planet. Bookmark it right now.
You
He
know what?
will overtake Derek Carr.
You know what? I'm gonna say this. If Nathan I'm gonna remember how I did
Are
the
you gonna
Jacoby
do the
Brissett.
jersey bet again?
I'm gonna do a jersey bet. Make a note this one. If Nathan Peterman is the starting QB and leads the Saints to the playoffs, I'm going to get myself a Peter Meme jersey. A Saints
Gotta get a
Nathan
Saints Peterman
Peterman
jersey.
jersey. Beat the
And you
dough.
have
Let's go.
and you have to put it on top of a mandir and do puja for it every day.
I have a mini closet on my in my
Exactly.
apartment. Do I just like
Exactly.
stuff the damn thing in there?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes.
This is NFL Masala, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
We do crazy jersey bet.
Exactly. Exactly.
This might be the only season I'll be excited for. Just for
Alrighty. Let's see. Yeah, they also got Equinemius St. Brown. Wow, they just harvested the Bears. They got Lucas Patrick, Nathan Peter Meme, and Equinemius St. Brown. So great job. Great job, Saints. Yeah, just a bunch of backups. They did extend a couple of their key players. They re-signed Honey Badger, to a 2-year, $13.75 million deal. And Demario Davis, their inside linebacker, to a 2-year, $17.25 million deal. So, yeah, that was two important signings. And for the Saints, their linebacking core, which has been very consistent in terms of having Demario Davis, he's been,
yeah.
dare I say, a top 15 linebacker for the past 5-10 years.
Mary Davis is a consistent player. That is for sure.
Exactly. He's a consistent player. Honey Badger himself, he's also a pretty consistent player going back as a safety. And I think the big and underrated re-signing is Rashid Shaheed. They were able to retain him for a 1-year, $5.2 million deal. He is their big deep threat, opposite of Chris Olave. And now that they brought in Cedric Wilson as well as depth, if you look at their depth chart, they have Chris Olave 1, Rashid Shaheed 2, Cedric Wilson 3, EQ Brown, A.T. Perry, and the rest. So if Chris Olave is going to now be their X receiver, their main receiver target, Rashid Shaheed is going to be on the other outside, probably in the Z spot, or as the other outside receiver, being the deep threat that he is. And more importantly, I think he's going to be their special teams specialty guy.
Okay.
Especially since, the kickoff return rules have changed. So you're going to want actual athletic, elusive running backs or wide receivers who can make plays in space.
I got beat the dough moment right here.
Okay.
Rashid Shaheed, because of those rules and the way that he's been playing in special teams, if there was an award, I give him Special Teams Player of the Year, especially in the kickoff return style.
Okay. Damn.
Because he's a threat. You better keep 2 eyes and some fast legs on him. Otherwise, he will mail you a receipt while he's on the way scoring a touchdown.
Hands down. Hands down. All righty. And then last but not least for them, they have released Marcus May, who was their safety before, who was also on the Jets for the in previous years, clearing about $1.43 million in cap space. Now, the problem for the Saints is they don't have cap space. As is usual with the Saints, right now, they're 23rd in terms of cap space, $10.2 million. but they're 10th in terms of dead cap that they have at $41.5 million. And if we were to look at the cap for next year, they are $98.595 million. So nearly $100 million over the cap next year. What? $100 million over the cap next year. That means they would be the next closest is Cleveland at 84 million, and then Miami at 71 million. And those three are the only teams that are, more than $50 million over the cap. That is insane. On the other end of the spectrum, the Patriots have $104 million positive cap space because they don't have anybody on contract. Like they don't have many expensive players on contract. But yeah, that's how bad the Saints are next year. And they have to keep doing this process of restructuring contracts, of adding void years, basically years where they can spread out the cash, but it doesn't affect the player's salary, but it does on the accounting side of their books. It's just so bad. The amount of bad deals that they've given out. They need Howie Roseman training.
No, they don't deserve any Howie Roseman training. They already been jinxed by the NOLA energy. Let's just. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but it's some sort of voodoo, man. And the fact that like almost every year that we've seen with the Saints, I'm not sure if what I'm saying is true though, but nearly almost every year that we see with the Saints, they've been over the cap by this ridiculous amount. I really want to go into their accounting books and see what the hell are they doing with that money.
Exactly.
Like, are you overpaying players that don't need to be on the team? I mean, you overpaid for who? Derek Carr. You depended a lot on Drew Brees, who was aging, but he was still playing at a high level. I mean, the list goes on, but this is just insane, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very surprising. Very surprising. Alrighty. Let's move on now. So finally we come to the draft. All right. So we know the team, the players that they brought in free agency, Chase Young being the biggest guy, hopefully to help out their pass rush. They also brought in Cedric Wilson just to be depth. They re-signed Rashid Shaheed, which is going to be the biggest thing for them. Demario Davis was also a really good re-signing for them, just to keep that consistency. Well, we'll see on paper. Again, on paper. This is all on paper. Consistency on the defensive side.
This is NFL Masala consistency, meaning
exactly on paper. So if we were to take a look at their 2024 draft picks, they actually did a very good job.
Yeah.
Talisa Fuaga, offensive tackle.
They needed depth on that.
Nailed it, right? So now when you look at their offensive line, it gets even better. You got Talisa Fuaga on the left side, Trevor Penning on the right side. He's hit or miss. He needs to improve significantly on that side. Cesar Ruiz in the middle, Eric McCoy as the center, Lucas Patrick coming in as depth, Nick Saldiveri as the left guard. So really solidifying that offensive line for Derek Carr and for their future quarterback, whoever that may be. We got one coming from this draft class, but yeah, very solid pick. They did not go wrong there at all. And second round, this hurt a lot, me being a Packers fan. They got Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama.
Yeah.
Solid selection. And the fact that he fell down to the second round, pick number 9, that's, I think, 41 right there. Solid selection. Because now when you look at their cornerback depth chart, actually their secondary depth chart, you got Marshawn Lattimore, who's their starting corner. He's
Mhm.
still playing at a decently high level. I would
Yep.
say like top 15 cornerbacks. Um, Paulson Adebo on the other side, Alante Taylor as a nickel back, and you got Kool-Aid McKinstry now. So it depends. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry probably will overtake Paulson Adebo's spot, given how talented Kool-Aid McKinstry is, especially in
He's
terms of
definitely
man
a
coverage.
starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
And I think like one thing for with Kool-Aid McKinstry, me on an Eagles perspective, I actually had him as a backup Eagles pick. If Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold went, then
Mhm.
Kool-Aid McKinstry would be the next one available because not only can he play the outside corner, but
Mhm.
he also works well as a safety. You just have to make sure that the scheme works. Maybe he could also play a little bit of nickel, and he does have. I mean, he can definitely stand up. Speed and agility needs to work a little bit on it, but he's a very physical corner. He will play up to the height. I mean, although like 5'11", dude, like the kid. I mean, this kid is
He plays
Alabama
big.
built tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's good.
Yeah.
And the Saints, I thought the Saints got a good pick on that one. Of course, I'm like, yeah, I'll bite the bullet on that.
Yeah. Now, they did not have a third round pick or a fourth round pick, but had 3 fifth round picks. So they got Spencer Rattler as the first pick of the 5th round. Actually, not a bad selection. The fact that he's a 5th round pick means if he works, he works. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It's a 5th round pick. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. There weren't that like this draft class was not really that deep. It was more top heavy. And you had a couple of a sprinkling of good players in that draft class towards the end, but they also got Bub Means, wide receiver from Pittsburgh, in the 5th round as well. Another 5th round pick, Jalen Ford from Texas. That was a selection that Rucksack really, really wanted, especially in the 5th round. He was good.
Linebacker.
He was really good, especially when you have Edrin Cooper gone and Peyton Wilson gone, and some of the other linebackers were gone as well. He was another option that was there for many teams, but he's a good addition, especially if you have a mentor like Demario Davis. You've got good hopes for him. He's got some good traits. He's a good run stuffer. Coverage, eh, eh, maybe, but he's a pretty good talent for them in the 5th round. And then Christian Boyd, a defensive tackle in the 6th round, and then finally Josiah Ezerim, tackle in the 7th round. So looking at this draft class, looking at their free agency, they definitely got some depth, and they got some quality potential starters on the offensive line, in the cornerback room. They got some depth on the offensive line, D line, and linebacking core, and they've got some depth in the wide receiver room. However, it's still lacking in a lot of major D line improvements. Chase Young is a significant addition, but is he going to be a complementary piece to Cam Jordan? Is he going to get to his Ohio State level of Chase Young, where he was pegged to be like a top 10 pass rusher in the NFL, in terms of his career? I don't know. And I just don't think that this is a scenario for him. I thought that the 49ers was actually a good place for him to learn because he didn't have to be the star pass rusher here, but pass rusher there. But in New Orleans, besides Cam, besides Cam Jordan, they don't really have others. So Chase Young has got to step up and provide some sort of an impetus in terms of this pass rush for the New Orleans Saints. Otherwise, things are going to start looking the same. And for me, if the D line does not improve in terms of their pass rush, which I don't think they have really, the offensive coaching does not change, and they have to rely on Derek Carr. We all know who Derek Carr is. He is who he is at this point. And that is a mid quarterback with a decently high completion percentage. He's able to get the ball out quickly. That's about it. The offensive coaching, we'll see if they're able to create a better system this year, especially if they can properly utilize Rashid Shaheed's talents, and if the running backs can get back on track in terms of production. But other than that, unless this coaching staff is overhauled and I see like some actual talented offensive coordinator, I just don't think the Saints are going to improve. And that's why I think they're going to go 10-7, very mediocre, second in the division, probably make the wild card, maybe pull off a victory. But other than that, I don't really see any improvement from the Saints this year from last year, right? Remember, they went 9-8 last year, so they had a winning record, but the difference from 9-8 and 10-7 is not that huge. It's one game. It's not a significance in terms of the divisional rankings. I still think they're going to be second in the division. Last year was the Bucks who were first, and this year is probably going to be the Falcons. Spoiler alert. But it's probably going to be the Falcons. So, yeah. Shandar Player of the Year for me. It's probably going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think he's going to thrive in that system, especially opposite of Marshawn Lattimore with the Honey Badger backing him up in the back end. I think he's going to shine as a corner, and I think he's going to be going to be a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate, a top 5 candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. So yeah, that's it for me.
I mean, definitely good analysis. Saints are basically going to be mid this season. I also have that going into mine. And we talk about the NFC South winners of last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a year after Tom Brady decided to call quits.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this time,
yeah.
After he called quits, the Baker Mayfield era started. They started 3-1, then fell to 4-7. And then finally rallied to a 5-1 ending, and they clinched the NFC South. They went 8-9 last year. Then they go 9-8. So, that. And of course they clinched the NFC South and a dominant playoff win over my Eagles.
That was in some ways more shocking than what the Packers did against the Cowboys. In some ways. Because at least the Packers had, like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't given the way that the Eagles fell apart during the last 5 games.
We'll talk about that next episode. We will talk about that. Don't give me this freaking PTSD crap all over again.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so they beat my Eagles in the playoffs first round before they lost to the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we could take a look into, Baker Mayfield was definitely effective. Defensive rookie Kalijah Cansey, first round, he was pretty damn effective. He was a good spot on defense. Apparently, defense was top 10 in scoring under Todd Bowles. So. And apparently during that 1-6 stretch, they had some really close losses, which were really fun games. And you know one game I'm going to talk about, that Houston, Texas versus Tampa Bay. Oh my God.
Yes.
They gave up, that defense gave up 500 passing yards and 5 touchdowns to CJ Stroud. But one thing is for sure, like that defense was able to remain as much consistent as possible. And one thing they did really good last season, they re-signed Levante David, who was their long-tenured player. 134 combined tackles, 4.5 sacks, while only missing 2 games. And
another top 10 running back who's an aging veteran, but deserves all the accolades because he's been so consistent for so long.
Yeah. Oh, and correction, it's actually not Kalijah Cansey who was like their best rookie. He was supposed to be, but Yaya Diaby just stole the spot from him, man. He stole the spot. Apparently, he took when he was the starting edge rusher spot, he recorded almost all of the 7.5 total sacks he earned over the season. And if you look at the AP Defensive Rookie of the Year, according to Rob Mahdi, this was done on Feb 8th. Will Anderson had 151 votes. Jalen Carter 122. Yaya Diaby, he was 6th. Behind Joey Porter, Devin Witherspoon, Colby Turner, Jalen Carter, and Will Anderson.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, congrats to the kid on that. So I'm happy for Yaya Diaby.
Really good pass rusher there.
Yeah, and I think this is what it. And of course, we got to talk about one big significant loss on the coaching side, which I will never understand. Dave Canales signing with the
division rival.
Yeah, I mean, I get the confidence, but I think we talked about this a long time, but I do not trust coordinators if they have less than 2-3 years in their position and they go ahead and take a gamble at it. I mean, if you want case in point, look at Frank Reich. Look at where he turned out. It's not worth it. And Dave Canales was like, what, 2 years on the job with the
But you also look at Shane Steichen and how he's performed with the Colts.
Right. Now with Anthony Richardson coming back to healthy, I think this is really, really interesting.
So I think Dave Canales could break the stereotype of young offensive coordinator who gets the first head coaching job but gets severely overwhelmed with all the stresses.
Yeah.
I think he can break that because of the way that he was able to coach Geno Smith. And but we'll talk about this in a little bit later.
You'll definitely
in the Panthers.
That. Yeah. So with that being said, let us take a look at the free agency. And I mean, we had a lot of contract restructures, especially with Mike Evans. I'll do my best to get some of the numbers down, but it may take a while. But some of the new hires that they got, Ben Brederson, offensive lineman, Ernest Brown, Randy Gregory coming in as an outside linebacker, Bryce Hall, corner, adds up to that depth, Lawrence Metz, Sua Opeta. I remember the name Sua Opeta, backup tackle for backup offensive lineman for the Eagles. Lawrence Metz, offensive lineman, good depth. And then, of course, to add more to that wide receiver depth chart, you add in a guy like Sterling Shepard from the Giants, although he didn't have that much targets, you pair him along with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and possibly Kobe Thompson. He'll get a chance to fight for the 53. Tavier Thomas, corner, wide receiver, Cody Thompson, and Jordan Whitehead. I think, and going back to that, I think this was the first one that they landed was Jordan Whitehead, former Jet safety, who's actually a former Buccaneer. He played by the way, Whitehead played first 4 years in the season with Tampa Bay, starter on that Super Bowl winning squad before going to the Jets in free agency, and then he returned back to his roots. Then getting some good backups, and then getting Bryce Hall, who can definitely be a good he played 4 seasons with the Jets, started 26 games. He could be the replacement for Carlton Davis, whom I will talk about pretty soon. And then going on with that, you also get outside linebacker Randy Gregory, who you may recognize from that San Francisco 49ers from that San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl squad that didn't win. So extremely incredible on that defensive side. You pair him up with Sua Opeta, and yes, you pair him up with Vita You pair him up with Vita Vea and the linebackers in Levante David, who you re-signed, a promising kid in Yaya Diaby, and don't forget another young ones in KJ Britt, Kalijah Cansey, goodness, and Joe Troyan Shinoika, who had another good season. I mean, this Bucks defense is even better improving. And to make it even sweeter for them, they were able to franchise tag Antoine Winfield Jr. on May 14th. They made him the highest paid defensive back on a 4-year deal. And he may have been the best safety in 2023. First team All Associated Press AP All Pro status. He had like 122 tackles with 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, 12 passes defended, 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumbled recoveries. I mean, Antoine Winfield Jr., my goodness. And not only that, the general manager for the Buccaneers, Chris Light, impressive re-signings, re-signing Levante David and Chase Edmonds, restructuring the contracts for Mike Evans, Greg Gaines, Baker Mayfield, and even re-signing Baker Mayfield to another 1-year deal. Chase McLaughlin, who was actually a really good kicker, and of course backup John Wolford. I mean, this is just insane. You're getting Mike Evans back, who's coming off his record 10 straight 1,000-yard receiving season in his first decade in the NFL. 5th Pro Bowl invitation, best output since 2018. Holy crap! The Bucks have literally nailed it. I think he could be the first offensive player who's played all or the majority of his career with the Buccaneers to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Probably in the Bucks Hall of Fame. In the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I'm not sure about that, but damn it, he is changing the game. The Baker Mayfield Mike Evans combo has been deadly. What can I say about it? It's just insane. But then again, you also got to look at players that were released, waived, traded, retired, and or signed by other teams. And we have to talk about Shaq Barrett, who was recently signed, who 2 weeks before free agency, the Bucks told Barrett that they would be cutting him off. They would release him once a new league starts. And then he did sign with the Dolphins after his release, but then again, a couple of days later, he comes back and decides to retire, call it quits. And with that, I wish him nothing but the best of luck. And with that, he had like 19.5 sacks in 2019, shattered the Bucs single season record, making him the first Tampa Bay to ever player to lead the NFL in that category. And then, of course, the Buccaneers traded with the Detroit Lions, which was to send Carlton Davis, who was a 7th-year veteran cornerback, to the Lions for a 3rd-round pick, number 92 overall. Originally as a Buccaneer, Carlton Davis did have some injury and leaving home. And then, of course, another person gone from the NFL, from their Super Bowl squad, was Devin White, a linebacker who was drafted in 2019. He did have a couple of good years, but then recently started losing some of his starting positions. He's now with my Philadelphia Eagles. He did start 75 games for the Bucs, recorded 566 tackles, 23 sacks. And then also we saw, and another thing is David Moore, Bucs wide receiver. He joins Dave Canales with the Panthers as another wide receiver. He was a part of the practice squad, but then he does end. But then again, it is just another one person gone. And then Ryan Jensen, the team's Pro Bowl center, he did announce his retirement on February 2nd, but not officially, when he was moved to the reserve retired list on June 4th. He played in 1 game over the past 2 years against Dallas in 2022 playoffs after suffering that knee injury in the team's O2 training camp. But I mean, with this, another insane and amazing job by the GM of the Buccaneers, Chris Light. And now we have to talk about the NFL draft. So far with the draft, we got to talk about the Bucks. They,
Mhm.
first of all, Chris Light, hell of a free agency for him. I mean, of course, he did lose some players. He had to trade away Carlton Davis, did lose Devin White, but the managing to restructure deals from Mike Evans, re-signing Baker Mayfield, and by all means, getting freaking Jordan Whitehead back. Sterling Shepard, adding more depth to that wide receiving core. Randy Gregory from the 49ers, and Bryce Hall to replace a possible Carlton Davis. I mean, and also re-signing Levante David. I mean, what more could you ask for him? I mean, he did. I thought he had a great. Well, I mean, like, not great, but it's all in paper. I usually don't go through all the numbers yet because, but because I want to talk about the players and how good they are. That's how I usually like to approach these type of things. And
So
with
what
that,
did they do in the draft then?
oh, with the draft, number 1 pick to replace Ryan Jensen. They followed the NFL Masala mantra. Build through the trenches, Namaha. Build through the trenches, Namaha. Build through the trenches, Namaha. And why are you doing this?
Go ahead.
They took Graham Barton, center from Duke.
He was my pick. He was my pick for the Packers. The Packers let him go to the Bucks, and we selected Jordan Morgan, who's not a bad player.
Yeah.
But Graham Barton is a superior player, especially in terms of athleticism and positional flexibility, which are 2 traits that the Packers really look into. And I'm surprised that they didn't go over him. But again, going back to the draft recap episode again, I'm not the offensive line expert. The Packers are really good at developing offensive linemen. So if they like Jordan Morgan, and it seems like in terms of training camp, he's actually very good, especially in the guard position, it's fine. But anyways, continue.
Makes sense. And then for their second round pick, they go with Chris Braswell, edge from Alabama. Definitely a good. I mean, you're just adding more depth to.
But hopefully you can replace Shaq Barrett with Chris Braswell. I mean, you can't right now, obviously.
You could, yeah. And then, of course, and then in the third round, they had 2 picks, and that one of them pissed me off. Getting Tyke Smith, safety from Georgia. Oh, I wanted him to complete the Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo, Jordan Davis, and possibly Tyke Smith. Why? But Tyke Smith, he may be a bit undersized, but he is a good physical safety. Just needs to be in the right system. And then they get Jalen McMillan.
That was a good one.
Receiver from UW. I mean, if Chris Godwin walks next year, he's definitely.
If either Chris Godwin or Mike Evans walks, then they've got a good developmental.
They got a
good
wide receiver. I mean, if you want stats, look at him burn through that paper defense of the UT Austin. Oh, I love saying that.
At least we got to the playoffs, unlike some Red Raider team, unnamed red and black team from some godforsaken podunk town in Texas.
Oh, the same podunk team that developed the greatest QB of this century. So, anyway, moving on.
He wasn't even that great in college. Andy Reid made him who he is now.
I don't know, but the roots go back to Texas Tech, baby. Pat Mahomes. Anywho, moving on. The Buccaneers decide to say, shoot, why not we make the entire NFC South suffer? Let's get a bruiser and Bucky Irving from Oregon with the 4th round pick. Brilliant. I do like this move. And I think the one that could be coming out could be Rachaad White. I don't think he makes it from that roster because Bucky Irving, he's definitely a starter.
I don't know. I think Rachaad White is a starter for them. He's still 25.
Yeah.
He was pretty decent in terms of running back efficiency last year. Obviously, he was still behind that offensive line that did not do a good job of run blocking.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I think that they are two different types of players. Rashad White is more of the power back kind of, because he has roughly 20 pounds on Bucky Irving.
Mm-hmm. So
But
Bucky Irving could be that speed or elusive talent.
kind of,
But
yeah.
let's see. And then with number 6, they got Elijah Klein. What next? You build through the trenches, solid guy from UTEP. So got to give a shout out to all the Texas schools. And last but not least, they get tight end Devin Culp or Devin Cup, CULP. Good backup tight end position. Good backup tight end. From UW Washington, and he's gonna have to battle for it behind Payne Durham, Cole Keith, Cade Otten, most likely, and David Wells. It's gonna be a while, but I could see practice squad. But if he shows up, it's gonna be good. And I thought this was a solid draft. I could say like a bit. I want to say almost like an A-B+ thing because the Bucks really didn't need to do that much. They literally got what they wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think like with this, let's take a look at what their season expectation is. I mean, the one thing that's going to change is their offensive coordinator because now you don't have Dave Canales anymore. So who do you have to begin with? And with that, let me check on this really quickly. The new offensive coordinator is going to be Liam Cohen,
from the Rams.
Ian, the offensive coordinator from the Rams. This is his first season, and he's split the last 3 seasons between Kentucky and the LA Rams. Served as OC for the both. He ran the Wildcats offense in 2021 and 2023. He was part of the McVay staff in 2022. And he has 14 years of coaching experience, including 4 years with the Rams. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does with this. But I think that's going to be like the biggest that's more of like the biggest change. And if looking at how the Rams constructed, they were focused more on that run game, and then they allowed the passing option to blossom, especially with Matt Stafford not having Cooper Kupp in the beginning. Then you have the emergence of Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, everyone's favorite wide receiver. I mean, and I think I think that's like been like one of the major changes. But season expectations, I say the Bucks will usually get into one of those slow starts because they're being adjusted to a new offensive coordinator. But the defense, it's just gonna be even more terrifying. Well, what should I even explain more? Do I need to explain more about this?
I don't agree with you.
Oh.
And I will talk about it in a little bit. But you go ahead.
I'll say this: they'll end off at a really strong. They'll have a strong end. Maybe start off a little bit shaky, and I say they could go 11-6. Their ceiling is 11-6, but most likely 10-7. They will clinch the NFC South. Past the wild card round.
Really?
Yeah, I think they can do that. They definitely do that. They're a better roster than the Mid Saints right now.
Okay.
And I mean, and they're gonna pass a wild card round. Division round at best, because there are a hell of a lot better teams.
Okay. All right.
They can reach the division round, but the wild card, it depends upon who they're facing. If they're facing like another low tier team, they're gonna make them walk the plank. See what I did there with the Bucks? Arg. But anywho, I got the Bucks going 10-7, at best 11-6.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So we'll see who turns out to be accurate at the end of this year. Now, obviously, you guys, disclaimer, this is the most accurate rankings you will ever find on any podcast ever on this planet. Right? Maybe some aliens with some advanced technology and quantum mechanics they can figure out the NFL better than we can. But other than that, us Daisies are the best. All right. We've got the Asian blood to figure out everything. Speaking of which, who's going to be your Shandar Player of the Year for the Bucks?
My Shandar Play of the Year. It's really tough because I could literally go Mike Evans again because he's gonna have like another 1,000-yard receiving. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, he could literally retire the next year and go into the Hall of Fame the following year.
Oh, definitely. First ballot Hall of Fame.
I mean, should we stick with the constant Mike Evans?
It's up to you, bro. You are the decider, all knower of the Bucks. You know what's going to happen inside and out.
I will do my best to live up to such expectations, my good sir. But with that being said, I will stick with what's been constant. Mike Evans, I think he could possibly hit 2,000.
Wow.
No, 1,500.
Okay. So
1,500 receiving yards.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
Or even more.
All righty.
He's my Shandar player because without Mike Evans, this offense may be a bit
is lackluster.
I feel it's more lackluster without Mike Evans.
Gotcha.
Mike Evans gives you that power. It gives you that punch. And it gives you like that punch that Bilal Muhammad did against Leon Edwards. So I want to say congratulations to Bilal Muhammad in UFC 304 to be the new welterweight champion of the world. Congratulations to you, Bilal.
All righty. So let's move on now to the Falcons. Last year, they were supposed to be the division champs. They had everything going for them, right? They had the offensive weapons. They had a decent defense from the previous year, but Arthur Smith had other plans. And you don't need to know anything more about the previous season than just what Arthur Smith did. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, the 1 and 2 running backs from the Falcons, were 19th and 25th, respectively, in attempts. This is Bijan Robinson we're talking about, one of the best running backs to have been drafted in the past 7 years. 5 to 7 years. He's one of the best. And he was 19th in running back attempts. And his backup, Tyler Algier, was 25th. Make that make sense, Rakshak. Make that make sense. You know what?
I don't know how to tell about this. Arthur Smith should be investigated by Congress for such things. Honestly.
Or the NFL, not Congress, because Congress, they have their own issues.
They have their own issues.
NFL, right?
Roger Goodell should be
competition committee needs to investigate Arthur Smith.
The owners should be investigating Arthur Smith.
Yes.
Why does he still have a job to begin with?
And this is unlike another 1-2 back combo in the Steelers between Najee Harris and Jalen Warren.
Oh,
they treated.
Did you say it? What have you done?
No, we're good. We're good. We don't have
control.
Hurry up. We don't have him. Going back to Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, they were ranked 6th and 37th respectively, which means they were actually utilizing their running backs appropriately. They're number 1 and number 2 running backs. The backup was getting a significant lack of targets than the starter. That's how it should be. Now, in the Steelers' case, it turns out Jalen Warren is actually a better running back than Najee Harris, so that becomes another problem. But Bijan Robinson is a far superior running back to Tyler Algier, and everybody but Arthur Smith knew that last year. And they were 6 spots away in terms of overall running back attempts. And you may think that that's a lot, but no, it's actually not. Yeah. Bijan had 214. Tyler Algier had 186.
And I want to say one thing: the biggest losers of that Falcons year has to be the fantasy football
Yes. Yes.
owners who
Whoever
had
thought that-
Bijan Robinson.
Whoever thought that they had Bijan Robinson as RB1, Kyle Pitts as tight end 1, Drake London as a wide receiver 1, they all suffered because Drake London, he had 2 more receptions than Tyler Boyd, the 3rd wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, who also had just Joe Burrow for maybe 10 games.
I don't know what to say. Should I
Drake
say anything?
London finished
What
with 69 receptions on the season, 2 more than Tyler Boyd.
But wait, Anand, what's going on, Steelers country? This is Russell Wilson right here.
No, he's back.
I'm so happy for my boy Arthur Smith. We're gonna be doing a lot of pass plays because it's gonna be so unlimited. I'm sorry, Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, but it's time to let Russ cook, baby. Steelers country, let's weld. Bro, I'm sorry, man. It's multiple personality, bro.
Yes, he's infected you. Alrighty.
Let's
save that. Let's save that breakout to another episode later down the line. But with the way that Arthur Smith utilized his offensive weapons and the way that Desmond Ridder played, which was not good, 26th in EPA per drop back, and basically every other category, he was in the bottom third of all starting quarterbacks last year. It was horrendous. That's all you needed to know. It didn't even matter how the defense performed. It's the offense that was so underutilized and so mismanaged last year. That was the biggest shocker of last year. So now, what did they do in free agency? Well, let's take a look at the players that they brought in. And the Falcons basically said, F this, what we saw last year. We're just going to completely revamp our entire mindset. So what did they do? They picked up Mr. Kirk Cousins from the Minnesota Vikings as a free agent to a 4-year, $180 million deal. Average annual value of $45 million per year for Kirk, Captain Kirk. $100 million total guaranteed. And that's with him coming off of a torn Achilles. I'm sorry, if it's an Achilles or an ACL, yes, it's an Achilles injury. So the fact that they gave that much money to Kirk Cousins, very shocking. Very shocking, but actually not that much surprising because they needed to overhaul this quarterback class, this quarterback room. And they were not in a position to get one of the top 2 in, Drake, in Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or even Drake May, right? They were not in that position. So since they weren't in that position and they didn't really have the ammunition to move up into that tier to get one of those 3 young QBs, they decided, hey, you know what? We've got a decent roster. Let's put all of our chips in. This division is for the taking. It's not the NFC West. It's not the AFC North, where every year some team or the other makes it through after having to go through a gladiator fest, right? So they did the most advantageous move that they possibly could in signing Kirk Cousins to that year, to that contract, and they tried to help him, right? So you got Drake London as your wide receiver 1, and then they brought in another wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, who's 27 years old, from Chicago on a 3-year, $39 million deal. Decent deal for wide receiver 2. Decent. They also have Kyle Pitts, who's going to be like their second wide receiver as well in terms of target share. Hopefully, on paper, That's how it looks like. They also have Bijan Robinson in a receiving capacity as well. So Darnell Mooney coming into that slot receiver role. If Drake London's going to be your outside possession receiver, Darnell Mooney is going to be the one inside and the slot. As a Z receiver, opposite of where the on the weak side, because on the strong side you're going to have Kyle Pitts and probably your second tight end as well as a blocker. But you also have Charlie Werner, speaking of blocking, tight end from San Francisco, 27 years old, 3-year, $12 million deal. They also brought in Ray McLeod, who played for the 49ers and for the Saints. Not Saints, Steelers, on a 2-year, $5 million deal, which is some depth. They also brought in Kentavious Street, defensive end. They re-signed him, actually. And then Antonio Hamilton, a cornerback out of from Arizona, and then a couple more depth pieces in terms of free agency signings and re-signings. So the biggest deals for the Falcons was Kirk on that 4-year, $180 million deal, and Darnell Mooney for that 3-year, $39 million deal. So who did they release? Well, they brought in Charlie Werner, so they had to let go of Jonnu Smith. Now, the way that Arthur Smith used Jonnu Smith was in a wide receiver, was in a tight end one role, which was not his intended role in this offense. That was supposed to be Kyle Pitts. But again, Arthur Smith was like, oh, I'm the smartest guy. I know what's going to happen. So Jonnu Smith was eventually released by Atlanta, clearing up $6.5 million of cap space, obviously helping them land Kirk Cousins. In terms of coaching changes, well, they basically said, we are cleaning the slate. The bad man, Arthur Smith, is gone. The boogeyman, Arthur Smith, is gone. In comes Raheem Morris, who was a 3-year defensive coordinator from the Rams. In comes Zach Robinson, who worked with the Rams in the offensive capacity as well, and Jimmy Lake, also from the Rams. So they basically saw, okay, everybody on Sean McVay's staff, I want them. That's basically what Arthur Blank did, is like everybody from the Rams coaching staff, I want them. So that's what they did in terms of coaching. Now,
that's a bold idea. That's a bold idea, Cotton. Let's see how this plays out.
Yep.
Insert dodgeball meme quote.
Yep. Now, here comes the fun part. The draft.
Oh my God.
The draft. So let's break this down, right? You got a new quarterback who's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next 3 to 4 years in Kirk Cousins. He's a veteran quarterback. He's 37 years old. He's also coming off of an Achilles tear. You were not in a position to get one of the 3 starting, like, great franchise caliber young quarterbacks in this draft, in Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. And you have a severe lack of depth in your pass rush department. What do you do?
You gotta go through the trenches.
Yeah. Do you draft Dallas Turner, who is purportedly an excellent pass rusher out of college?
No, duh.
Or do you draft your eventual replacement for your quarterback in Michael Penix?
I'm telling you this. I said this multiple times on different podcasts, but the Falcons committed draft seppuku.
Yep.
They committed Japanese ritual suicide of this magnitude.
And the problem is, Michael Penix is already 24 years old. He is on the older side for a rookie. And he has significant injury concerns that he's coming off of. And you don't really have an out in Kirk Cousins' contract until 3 years down the line. So if by some chance Michael Penix, becomes if Kirk Cousins stays as the starting quarterback 3 years in, and Michael Penix is coming up on exercising his 5th-year option, which is in 3 years now, he would be 27 years old, not having played a single snap of professional NFL football as a starting quarterback, being a backup, first-round draft pick, number 8. When you have significant other needs, who are the if we take a look at the Falcons' pass rushing depth chart, it is sad. They have Zach Harrison. Grady Jarrett is the only one who's probably capable of getting 12 plus sacks on the year. David Onyemata, who is a decent player, but he's 31 years old. And he's their interior defensive line. Arnold Ebiketie, okay, he's a young guy coming off of 6 sacks in his entire last year in his career, last year. 6 sacks, 25 total tackles. On his career in 2 years, he has 8.5 total sacks. So, yeah, they don't have depth, and it shows. It shows. They had the 12th fewest sacks in the entire league last year. And if you were to look at actual sack percentage, give me a second while I pull this up. Pro football. But if you look at sack percentage, come on. They were also very low. They were also very low in terms of creating sacks and generating sacks. So yeah, okay. I need to find this stat now. The problem is like okay, team defense, team advanced defense.
It's how jinxed this team is, man. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I mean, this team did the most historical thing, of course, 28-3, which is going to live in infamy.
Mm-hmm.
And then drafting Michael Penix.
Yeah. So they were 14th. They were 14th in the league in terms of sack percentage, which is not bad, but you definitely need to put more pressure, right? If you look at pressure percentage, they were not very they were not good as well. They were like top 12, so it's pretty decent, but they also had a pretty high number of missed tackles. And when you look at their overall sack percentage, yeah, it's not as high as it should be. So the fact of the matter is, when you look at their defensive performance last year, it was middling to below average. And especially when you look at that D-line and that pass rush standpoint, they were not able to produce consistent performance. So they could have gotten help from Dallas Turner, but no, they didn't do that. Now, what they did do is they draft Michael Penix. They got Rook Orororo, the interior defensive tackle from Clemson. A little high, given that there were other options there as well. Braylon Trice, the edge from Washington, from the 3rd round. Brandon Dorlus, another defensive tackle from Oregon. Again, see, they decided to invest in the pass rushing standpoint when they could have done it before as well. And they could have probably taken someone like, I don't know, Kool-Aid McKinstry in the second round and pick number 3, or I don't know, Cooper DeJean, who was also available then, or
But
any
did
one
they?
of the other players who they needed depth as well, because it's not like you are solid in the secondary. You have AJ Terrell, who's going to be your lockdown corner, Mike Hughes, who's a good nickel corner, and who else is in your secondary? Clark Phillips III, decent slot corner there, 5'10", 180. He's a 4th round pick. Again, decent, but not special. And then you got Kevin King as your third. So you literally could have revamped your secondary in that second round pick, with that second round pick and probably your third round pick. But no, you didn't. You decided to go the dumb route and select Michael Penix. And then you were forced to select defensive line, especially early, because you did not invest in it before. And then now you got J.D. Bertrand out of Notre Dame as a linebacker in 5th round, and Jace McClellan, running back from Alabama, Casey Washington, wide receiver in the 6th round, and Zion Logue, defensive tackle in the 6th round as well. So again, they made the moves on the offense in the free agency. Great. The draft is where they dropped the ball. But I still think that they've done enough to be the division champions this year. They have everything on paper, but if several things work out, such as Kirky Kirk and the Maroon Bunch this time, not Purple Bunch, but Maroon Bunch.
The Scarlet Bird Bunch.
Scarlet Bird Bunch.
The Scarlet Black Bird Bunch.
Yeah. If they remain healthy and they can get, and especially Kirk Cousins can get back to pre-injury performance. If Zach Robinson's offense actually gel with the offensive weapons and utilizes them properly, and if the defense can actually create some pass rush, then I think they can be division champs this year. They should be division champs this year, given the lack of competition from the other teams. I think they go 11-6. They win the division, and they go on to the divisional round. And I think that's where they stop their success, because I don't think they progress any further than that. There are 4 teams that I can name right off the top of my head who are better than the Falcons. You got the 49ers, you got the Lions, you got the Packers, and you got the Rams. They're all better than the Falcons. Mm-hmm. And I think they're all going to beat them, be in the championship round. Now, that's a good result for this team, for this coaching staff, for this quarterback situation, considering that Kirk Cousins is just coming off of an injury, right? Where he missed the last half of the season. So if everything goes well and they get to the, they win the division, they get to the divisional round, I think that's a successful year for the Falcons this year. And so in that scenario, I think Bijan is going to be my Shandar Player of the Year, top 5 Offensive Player of the Year candidate, and second in rushing yards and touchdowns.
Mr. Bijan Robinson?
He's going to have a breakout fantasy year.
Oh.
The fantasy year he should have had last year, but Arthur Smith was like, no, I'm a genius. Let me do my thing.
I mean, I could see that, but I'll disagree with you on that later. Spoiler note.
Okay.
And last but not least, the most disappointing team ever of last year, the Carolina Panthers. I mean, what could have gone wrong already went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were 2-15 after going all in for Bryce Young. Pardon my French, but what an effing disaster. It was so bad.
Yeah.
They fired Frank Reich after 11 games and a bunch of personnel. Owner David Tepper was a clown show for throwing drinks.
Oh my God. I hate that man already.
And the Panthers didn't even have and because of that, they gave a 2024 first round pick. Chicago used it smartly to get Caleb Williams with that.
That trade will go down as one of the worst trades in probable NFL history.
I mean, good Lord, or whatever God that you pray to. This was a shite show.
Hands down. Hands down.
And I'm going to skip all this depressiveness because there may be some good things.
Yeah, we don't really need to recap. They can watch like one game, not the Green Bay Packers game, because Bryce Young actually played well in that one because Joe Barry is a menace to society.
Yeah.
But yeah, look at any other game for the Panthers and you'll just understand why it was so depressing for them.
Miles Sanders, why did you go over there, man?
You just need to know one stat. You just need to know one stat. It was so bad last year that the final games tickets were selling out as low as $5. They were only able to fill out about 5,000 seats in the entire stadium.
Let's go.
That's how bad and depressing it got.
This is money for Dave Tepper, baby. Let's go.
They were losing millions of dollars left and right.
Yeah, insane. Anywho, what they do in free agency? Well, they did do some things right by first. They first did by signing Robert Hunt from the Miami Dolphins to shore up that offensive line. I believe it was a 5-year, $100 million deal. You can talk about
deal,
bad
massive
deal
contract, but they had to overpay a little because I don't think any free agent is coming to Carolina unless they're getting like top of market money.
True, and then they also got Damian Lewis. They managed to pull up Damian Lewis from the Seattle Seahawks for a 4-year, $53 million deal. And then they also signed some linemen like Ashawn Robinson, defensive tackle, 3-year, $22.5. Deontay Johnson, whom they acquired from the Steelers via trade. And apparently, and this was 24 hours after they gave away Brian Burns, their 2-time Pro Bowl pass rusher, idiot. And they said like Deontay Johnson to the Steelers, to Deontay Johnson, and a 2024 pick swap. Carolina received the 240th overall, and Pittsburgh received the 178. I mean, okay, I guess. Dane Jackson, 2-year deal. Kalavon Chason, 1 year. Jordan Fuller, I thought that was
decent deal.
Yosh Nijman got signed.
Yes,
so
that was a backup deal from the Packers.
And I thought what was really surprising was Jadeveon Clowney coming back to his old state.
Yep.
And it was a 2-year, $14.5 million deal. He joins his former teammate from University of South Carolina, fellow Gamecock, and it was for a 2-year, $14.5 million deal for Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, he was part of that Ravens defense. I thought they were going to win it, but Lamar Jackson, you moron. That's all I can say. And Rashad Penny, who didn't do anything with the Eagles. Oh, thinking Pete Nathan and I literally made shirts. Earth, Wind, Fire, Air, and Boston Scott playing drums. What did Rashad Penny do? Nothing. So a couple of people that they traded away. Brian Burns went on a massive trade deal with the Giants. I'm not going to talk a lot about details here.
Yeah, I think we did break it down in a previous episode. So
Jeremy Chin signed with the Commanders. Dante Jackson, he was part of the deal that went to the Steelers for Deontay Johnson. David Sharp, offensive tackle, goes to Texans. Frankie Louvu back to Commanders. They did release Hayden Hurst, Bradley Boozman, and Von Bell. Shaq Griffin, Kamu Grugier-Hill, they both go to the Vikings. CJ Henderson, corner, goes to the Texans. Texans are doing everything, and Deion Jones signs with the Bills. That's going to be a long story, but short. Some of the people that are staying, Rasheed Blackshear, Troy Hill, JJ Jansen, Tay Davis, basically some unknowns. I mean, but skipping all ahead because this Panthers team is so depressing, man. I mean, they did restructure Shaq Johnson, cleared about $3 million in cap space. See my enthusiastic face. But we did have some updates. Dave Canales as head coach. That was my shaky part on that. Dan Morgan being promoted from assistant GM to GM and president of football operations. I thought that was a good move. And knowing Dan Morgan being a longtime Panther player, he is definitely going to be on point. And some other interesting news. They brought in Jim Caldwell as a senior advisor, and former Panthers corner D'Angelo Hall. He's going to be their secondary coach.
Okay.
So he'll definitely help Ejiro Evero. And their new offensive coordinator, his name is Mr. Brad Idzik. He used to be, he was part of this. He was a Seattle from 2019 to 2022. He was the assistant wide receivers head coach and also quarterback of offensive quality control coach. He actually joins Dave Canales from Tampa Bay as the wide receiver, because when he was in Tampa Bay along with Dave Canales, he was their wide receiver coach. Now he becomes the offensive coordinator. So I thought that was interesting. And yes, D'Angelo Hall, he's the assistant defensive back. He helps he helps Ejiro Evero do something at least. Passing game coordinator, you might recognize Nate Carroll. Remember the name Nate Carroll? Former Seattle Seahawks offensive assistant. And
son of Pete Carroll?
No, not son of Pete Carroll. He was a longtime member of the Seahawks coaching staff. I mean, from 2011 to 2023, he was part of the team. He was also an executive personnel assistant that helped them win the Super Bowl ring. When they just blew the doors out. From defense assistant to offensive assistant to assistant wide receiver, receiving coach, and now he's the passing game coordinator. So you got a lot of, I'm seeing a trend, like a lot of Seahawks players, it's from that Seahawks tree, but yeah.
Even Dave Canales. He coached
Dave Canales
Seattle as well.
True. And let's go to the draft really quickly. So they traded after some trades, they actually traded via Kansas City, via Buffalo. I don't know what the hell Buffalo was doing then. They got Xavier Legette from South Carolina, who's now everyone's fan favorite because of that Southern accent, but he's a damn good wide receiver. Height, speed, agility, he's got it. Jonathan Brooks, they got a running back from after a trade with the Colts from UT. Tell us more about Jonathan Brooks for a bit.
So he was a really good running back for us. He helped us get to the playoffs, obviously. He's got some speed to him as well, his game-breaking speed, especially if he can get away. Now, he is coming off of an ACL tear. That was one of the significant losses for Texas last year, especially during our last playoff run. So that is something that we have to keep in mind, but he is a really good running back. I believe he is, if we look at his, he's 6 foot, 207 pounds. So he's got some muscle on him and he can really move.
Yeah. I think he'll be behind Chuba Hubbard, Rashad Penny, and Miles Sanders. Just give him some time to heal up in that. Then they managed to get, in third round, they got Trevin Wallace with a trade, trading from the Jets. They took Trevin Wallace, linebacker from Kentucky. So you're adding more towards that depth. I mean, it's just there. I mean, you get to learn from Jadeveon Clowney. Then you got Jatavion Sanders, tight end from UT.
Another good one. That was another good.
They definitely need, with Hayden Hurst being out of the way, and not that much room with like Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, Jordan Matthews. Then after some trade backs, you got Charles Smith Wade okay corner from Washington State in the 5th round. 6th round, after some trading picks to move back. 6th round with the 200th pick overall. They got Jaden Cromedy from defensive tackle from Mississippi State, so helps out with the line. And then last but not least, their last 240th pick overall, they get Michael Barrett, linebacker from Michigan, probably special teams. Season expectations. I don't have any expectations for this team. I honestly don't. I mean, Dave Canales, you're bringing a new system for Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce Young must be like, thank the gods I have someone who can actually coach me. But then again, it's going to be really, really tough because, I mean, yeah, you have like your only good veteran wide receiver is Adam Thielen, who is still on the roster for some odd reason.
Yeah.
And you're going to be depending a lot on Xavier Legette. I don't know. It's a tall task to order. Plus this defense. Yeah, you just got D'Angelo Hall to help you out, but Ejiro Evero, man, he just needs to come up a little bit more. So it's going to take a lot of time. They'll not make the playoffs, but they'll go 4-13. They'll at least double their wins from last year. 2-15 to 4-13.
Yeah.
If they go 5-12 and 6-11, that's a success for me. And my Shadar Player of the Year, I actually have to go with Bryce Young on this one. I think he takes a step forward, unlike that disastrous last year.
Okay, so we actually agree on that. I agree that they are going to go 4-13 as well, and that's going to lead us into our final divisional breakdowns. So we agree in terms of the Panthers.
Yes.
The rest of them is where we disagree, and I'll tell you why. The Falcons, I think, are going to go 11-6, Saints 10-7, Bucks 7-10, and Panthers 4-13. So I think the reason why I'm high on the Falcons and lower on the Bucks is because the Bucks just lost Dave Canales. He was the catalyst for Baker Mayfield's resurgence. And I don't know if Baker Mayfield can get to a consistent form without Dave Canales' system. And Dave Canales created a system where he relied on Baker Mayfield's strengths, which is running out of the pocket, throwing, on the run in shotgun formation. Like that is what Baker Mayfield specializes in. And they targeted that frequently. So if they move away from that formula for Baker Mayfield, is he going to be that successful? And that question, I think, I don't know the answer to, and that's why I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic on them. And that's why with the Falcons, I'm a little bit more optimistic because seeing the way that Matt Stafford has been able to have a resurgence in Sean McVay's offense, I think in a similar offensive system, Kirk Cousins, especially coming off of an Achilles injury, can benefit significantly with that offensive weaponry that he has. So I think that's why I trust the Falcons more. And that's why I think they go 11-6. The Saints, again, definition of mid. That's why I think they go 10-7. And the Panthers, while they do go 4-13, I think they're very close. I think they're very close in all of their games because when you look at their schedule, they obviously face their own teams, but they face the Chargers, the Raiders, the Bengals. So that's going to be a loss. The Bears, which is a probable win. Commanders, a probable win. Denver is a probable win. The Giants could also be a probable win. Then they face the Chiefs, which they're going to lose. And then they face your Eagles, Cowboys, Cardinals, and that's it. So, they have 4 probable wins that are probably going to be pretty significant margin, maybe like a touchdown. But I think in all the other games, especially against the Chargers, the Raiders, they could even split with some of their divisional teams as well, like a surprise one in New Orleans, or let's say, versus Tampa Bay. So I think it's definitely possible that they can pull off some close victories and keep it close in some of their losses as well. So I think if they get 4 wins, 5 wins, and they look close or competitive, especially that defense more than the offense, I think that's a successful season for them. And I think the Panthers could look at positive news for 2025.
100%. And now this is where I come into conflict with my co-host, my dear co-host, who
Yes.
I consider as a brother, whom I love very much. See, I'm going the Stephen A route right here.
Okay.
Look, but I have to be clear with you. The Bucks are going to win this division, man, easily.
Why easily?
No. I mean, no, it will be a dogfight. That's for sure. This for the top 3, at least for the top 2 between the Saints and the Bucks. Reason being, yeah, Dave Canales is out, but I mean, I don't want to be depending about too much of him, but I do like what Liam Cohen has brought in, especially when he was part of that Rams. Remember last year, couple of years, he's been switching off from 2018 to 2019. He was the Rams assistant wide receiving coach before he became an assistant QB coach in 2020. Mm-hmm. He was helping a lot. Yeah, he was on the backside with Jared Goff, but being able to learn, he actually helped when he was part of the U of K Kentucky back in college. He was actually part of their offensive coaching staff that, I think Kentucky broken some passing records and then came back to LA in 2022 as their new offensive coordinator right after Kevin O'Connell left for Minnesota. Yeah. But now that he's back in the NFL after serving as an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, he's gained a lot of that experience and with some series of amazing additions by Chris Light on the free agency staff. The Buccaneers will have one more win over the Saints, and the Saints are gonna go. So Bucks go 10-7. The Saints go 9-8. The definition of mid itself. There'll be a competitive mid, but not an over the mid. The Falcons will go 8-9 because, hear me out, the injury bug's gonna happen again. Just when you think everything's gonna happen well, there's going to be some difficulty with this, with the age, and plus Kirk Cousins coming back from an ACL or MCL tear, it was ACL, right?
Kirk Cousins, Achilles.
Oh, Achilles. It's a very difficult. It's one of the very difficult injuries to recover and rehab, and it's going to take some time. And I mean, if he's able to play and take him over 9-8, I'll eat crow. That's fine. But 8-9 is where I realistically see this, because not only that, you have to take into account a new offensive scheme, especially for Bijan Robinson and others. This is actually something that we can run. They may get a little bit of rusty, but they'll get some momentum on for next year. And Panthers 4-13. We talked about it. I know you've already said it. Let's spare them the news on that. So,
yeah. All righty. So that's going to be it for us today. If you guys have enjoyed it, please give us a review at one of the 4 podcast platforms that we host this podcast on: Apple, Google, Spotify, and Pocket Casts. Or send us an email at nflmasala@gmail.com, spelled as nflmasala@gmail.com. Or you guys can find us on YouTube. That's
Season 3, baby.
YouTube channel, Season 3. And Rakshak, what else can they do?
You can also find us on our other 2 platforms, Twitter and Instagram. Twitter X, the handle is at, all lowercase, at NFL MASALA 2022. Again, at NFL MASALA 2022. For our Instagram handle, that is the same handle name, at NFL MASALA 2022. That is at NFL MASALA 2022, all lowercase.
Yeah. So that's going to be it. Then we're going to hit you with our signature outro. Go Pack Go.
And fly, Eagles fly. Take care and have a good night.